Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well during this very scary and distressing time. I know a lot of you have lost your jobs. I've talked to students that have been kicked out of their dorms. Some of you have gone home. Some of you are couch surfing. Um, I'm afraid there's probably food insecurity as well as housing insecurity. I just know for so many of you, this is probably the toughest time in your life. And my thoughts and prayers, although that sounds like such a cliche, uh, are with you. I think you're an amazing group of students, and it really pains me that you have to go through this. I will say that this will have an end. I think the United States will bounce back. I'm often critical of the United States. I'm often critical of Texas, but I actually have great belief in both the United States and Texas, the vitality of our society and our economy. Um, right now, things don't look good, but this will not last forever. And hold on to that if you can. And good luck. I hope you're safe. Um, anyway, so I'm gonna in this podcast. I have a podcast that I've uh, already recorded, um, but I want to touch on Torget in this podcast, just to give you a sense of how to approach the last two chapters of that book, which, by the way, I think are the best two chapters in the book in terms of being readable. And here's the big take-home point: the Republic of Texas, although it's one of the things that makes Texas unique, right? That Texas was an independent nation. We're very proud of that in Texas. But Tourget's argument is ultimately the Republic of Texas was a failure. It was a failure for a bunch of reasons. It was in debt. It was facing attacks from Indians. Mexico was always hoping to recapture Texas. Texas was isolated among the family of nations. Most countries wouldn't deal with Texas because Texas was a slaveholding nation at a time when abolition was gaining steam. So it's diplomatically isolated. But the real problem that Texas faced was it was so tied to cotton, the cotton economy. That's a good thing economically. It's horrible because of the horrors of slavery, the atrocities of slavery. But economically, it's a good thing when the price of cotton goes up. But as we're learning, and as we've learned in the last couple of weeks, often what goes up also comes down and can come down with uh, so rapidly that your head spins. And that's what happens with cotton. When Texas becomes an independent nation, the price of cotton is pretty high, but within a couple of years, the price of cotton collapses. So the Republic of Texas had a lot of issues that it faced, and Texas doesn't really become the Texas that we know until it becomes part of the United States. Is much stronger as part of the United States than outside of the United States. And anyone that thinks the Republic of Texas was this super strong entity is just living in a fantasy world. They don't know the history. I'll give you an example of the weakness, I guess the ambitions of the Republic of Texas, but the reality for the Republic of Texas. I have a map on my screen, and the Republic of Texas, it's the green, the darker green aspect part of that map. And hopefully you recognize this because this is how Mexico City saw Texas during the Spanish era and during the Mexican era. They didn't see Texas as the magnificently shaped state that we have today. They saw Texas as kind of this kind of undistinguished. I don't even know what the geometric term would be, which goes from kind of San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. Doesn't include Big Bend. Doesn't include El Paso. Doesn't include Midland. And doesn't include South Texas, where I know many of you are from. Now, Republic of Texas claimed this entire area, the full area in green, um, and but it didn't have. So it claimed that it reached all the way to the Rio Grande River, but the Republic of Texas was so weak it could claim it, but that doesn't mean it actually governed it. Okay, so if you're from Laredo, if you're from anywhere near the Rio Grande, your ancestors were here at the time. They did not live under the Republic of Texas. They were still part of the Mexican state, mostly of Tamaulipas and to a certain extent Nuevo Leon and Coahuila. Okay, so you can make a claim. Texas made a claim, but that doesn't mean it would have been realized. Now the other thing is, and you might have seen this map, kind of the panhandle of Texas goes all the way up to what's now southern Wyoming and the eastern part of New Mexico. The reason that Texans made that claim was they argued that the Rio Grande, anything that touched the Rio Grande and east of the Rio Grande, what I'm talking, the river, was part of Texas. So the Rio Grande River starts in the Rocky Mountain area of Wyoming and flows through New Mexico and then through El Paso all the way to the Gulf. So that's why Texans claimed this huge area that included eastern New Mexico, included Santa Fe, into parts of Colorado and Wyoming. They claimed that as part of Texas because that was the area that the Rio Grande drained. Okay, but again, it's a fantasy. You can claim it. It looks kind of cool on the map. It'd be kind of cool if Texas owned some of Colorado. But the reality was much different. The reality was that that kind of undistinguished shape, the darker green shape that you see on your screen now and that I'll post. That was the reality. And to be honest with you, the Republic of Texas could barely even govern that smaller chunk of than the larger territory that they claimed because of the issues that I talked about and I'll talk about again in podcast. So the Republic of Texas is very weak. Let me also point out something that the de facto border of Texas in 1836 to 1845 was what it had been for hundreds of years. It's the way the Spanish saw it. It was the way the Mexicans saw it. It was the Nueces River. And what's going to happen after Texas becomes part of the United States, there's going to be a war between the U.S. and Mexico to establish the Rio Grande River as the southern border of Texas. But it's not there yet. So, big take-home point before I move on, Republic of Texas, very weak slaveholding entity with a cotton economy that was tied to the ups and downs of cotton. When the price of cotton was high, things were great. When the price of cotton collapsed, they weren't great. Texas facing many threats. So it's the Republic of Texas, I guess here's the take-home point. The Republic of Texas is much stronger in memory than it was in reality. It's part of the Texas myth. And I'll say that again. The Republic of Texas, much stronger in memory than it was in reality. And I'll talk a little bit about Torget in the next podcast.